Live Audio Wrestling.
And let's go. We're now smoking with the best.
Welcome back. Just after 1 a.m. still to come, Labransky's interview with Mick Foley as Title Belt Trivia as well. But right now, I think someone who's been tweeting out tonight that can relate to the election going on in the U.S. and all the fact-checking going on. Dave Meltzer, I enjoyed your tweet tonight. They're doing fact-checking like you do when Hogan writes a book.
When a lot of people write books.
a lot of people in the wrestling
Not
industry
just
write
Hogan.
books.
Hogan was the one for the joke, but there's a lot of other names, too.
And both have to be worried about what's caught on tape, Dave.
I know, really.
Oh, yes, very true.
Yeah.
Dave, we just left off in the last segment talking about a little about UFC, about Georges St. Pierre, and the card that's coming here to Toronto, UFC 206, on the UFC website. There is the main event that seems to be left opened. And with Anderson Silva's son throwing out that picture about the two of them and saying a very interesting Christmas season. How close is this to happening?
Don't know. The thing that I had heard is that, the same thing as far as George is that it's a money thing, that he's asking for a significant amount of money. If they do George and Anderson, at least, that'll be a great return to Toronto if they do it. But I haven't heard anything of it. In the middle of the week, I know from talking to people at UFC that George and them were at kind of a contractual stalemate.
Dave, do you think part of the hesitation of simply putting Georges St. Pierre on this card makes all the sense in the world, that giving him this incredible guarantee that's going to raise the ceiling if you're a Conor, if you're a Ronda, especially a Ronda who's maybe only looking at a few more fights, that, hey, if George is getting this, we want X amount more as well, that it's going to increase all of your stars and what they're going to demand?
Absolutely. That's exactly, you hit it right on the head. I think that's the issue. And also, George wants to be compensated for the loss of sponsorship, because you guys all know that George was when he was fighting before, made a tremendous amount of money in sponsorship that's now out the window. And that's another thing that, from his standpoint, it's like, why should I, if they're taking that away from me, they should make it up. That's only fair. And they're thinking that that's a real bad precedent to set. And, he's thinking, well, if they don't do it, then why can't I wear my sponsors? And, of course, they have to deal with Reebok, so you can't do that. So it's a real interesting situation. George coming back, and everything, that could lead to tremendous business. Between, with Ronda coming back and George coming back and Conor still being on fire. And they need to be doing tremendous business now. They put themselves in a position where they have to.
Let's flip over to the world of pro wrestling, which we watched tonight, the No Mercy card. Tonight, you were talking about the election on Twitter. That was going on. The Blue Jays were going on up here. The debate. And you also had a football game. And WWE countered this by really mixing and matching what they normally do in a pay-per-view event. And how'd you feel about this lineup and the way it went down?
It was strange, to say the least, why you would put the Cena match first when that was really the main event. And then I thought, well, they'll put the Ziggler match last because that's Dolph Ziggler's career. And they didn't do that either. And they put the Randy Orton match last. And I go, man, they must have something great to end the show with if they're going to put that last.
Nope.
And then they didn't. So, it was as far as order and placement, it was a really weird show. It felt like, is like if Dan would remember, then John, I don't know if you'll know the story, but I don't know if you remember this, was when I was a kid at the Garden, in Madison Square Garden, they used to always put Bruno on right before intermission. Or Backlund, and then before the last match, they would announce the next card, which was actually one of the most anticipated parts of the entire show. So
right.
You had to have the main event, so they would announce what the next card was with the main event, and then you would end with this meaningless tag match. And that's what this show felt like. Is like, okay, we've done all this stuff, and now we're throwing these two guys out there in this match that just fills out till the show is supposed to end.
That's what they used to do on Saturday Night's Main Event as well, where they had Hogan on second most of the time.
Well, that made sense because you wanted Hogan on when the largest audience was watching, and a lot of people went to bed early. That wasn't the case here. I think it was they just thought everyone was going to tune out to the debate, so we'll get the main event. But to me, it's like there wasn't like any great angle or anything like that. I thought like there's this great angle they wanted everyone to see in the main event. The main event was really just a standard match. It was a good match, but just standard.
I don't even know if that angle is just so horrendous. Everything leading up to it was really bad, and I didn't think the match delivered. But what did deliver, I thought, beyond expectations, was the Miz and Ziggler match tonight. It turned into a great angle, and they managed to reinvigorate the Ziggler character and get the crowd into it, which I was surprised, Dave, for a guy who constantly get beaten, people seem to care.
Yeah, well, I think that it really was a testament to how great that match was. That because I don't know that they were really that into it when it started, but with everything, and then especially when they did the Spirit Squad guys, and it was like I think one of the things that made the match was that everybody thought he was going to get screwed in the end because he always does, and then when he won, it was like, wow, he didn't. But even without even without people knowing who won, I thought in like the last couple of minutes of the match, the people were on their feet. I mean, it was really hot, like you almost never see at a WWE show.
Becky Lynch, do we know what happened?
It's not an injury. It's a medical condition, and exactly what it is, I don't know. But it's not, she's going to be back in a couple of weeks. It's not serious, but she's out for a few weeks.
And she tweeted a picture of herself in hospital, it looked like, tonight.
So she's in the hospital.
Let's talk about other comebacks. Goldberg. We all expected, we heard news that he's supposed to be at Survivor Series wrestling Brock Lesnar, and he was on ESPN, but this announcement was not made.
I know. I was really surprised. I figured, especially with it all coming out during that week, I thought that they would, I thought that's what that was all about. But I guess the idea is they don't want to undercut Hell in a Cell by giving you a main event before Hell in a Cell takes place. That was what it was kind of explained to me. But I thought, he should have at least teased it more. I mean, Heyman was teasing it on Twitter. There was no question about it. And it's not like a secret that it's going to happen. I was surprised the way Bill put it because Bill is one of those guys where he really doesn't want to not tell the truth, but with him doing this thing of maybe towards the end of the year, I thought it was like that was almost like saying I'm not going to be ready, and I don't know if he's going to back out, and then they're going to have to make it later. There's an argument for the Alamo Dome instead of Survivor Series, but I think the key with the Survivor Series is that it's right before the big the Thanksgiving week, which is the big sales week for the video game, and they want it. That's kind of like what the timing of everything is. That's why they're going to do it on that weekend.
And as far as, because most would expect if you're bringing Goldberg back, put him at WrestleMania. But the thought process is Lesnar has an opponent at WrestleMania.
Yes.
And is that opponent Shane McMahon?
I don't know that factually, but it's certainly hinted to me. And if you watched, when Lesnar left, I mean, Shane was cutting promos on him, so that was kind of the direction. Unless Shane's going to bring in someone to face Lesnar, and I don't. Who knows? Who knows how they're going to do it? But yeah, that was certainly the idea.
Dave, over the last number of days, have you been able to make sense out of Alberto Del Rio and his contradictory stories? We've gotten two stories out there, and it seems that has led to the most confusion here involving this stabbing that we didn't know a week ago tonight about why he missed a AAA show. That all came to the surface Monday, but it seems that his stories have it's just led to all these signals being crossed now. Yeah,
it's exactly what you said. I think everyone is skeptical of exactly what happened. There's, again, you probably called the police. I know I did, and it was got a very unsatisfactory answer in the sense that it was just weird when you call a police department. Was there celebrity stabbed, and they acted like they knew nothing. It's like whenever there's something that's involved, like a celebrity, when you call the police, they're expecting your call and they know what you're going to ask, and they're ready. And then the idea that we need to get an address, and then we were unable to get the address of or where it happened or anything from him. So it really, you're just going like, why is this so hidden? And there's obviously a reason why, but we'd have to speculate to what that would be.
Yeah, and he's already worked another match, which you had the chance to see.
He worked a couple of matches. He worked Thursday and he worked yesterday in England.
So it's obviously not that. I mean, you hear stabbed or slashed, right?
He was stabbed in several places. He worked with a shirt on. He never took his shirt off. I got a tweet from somebody. A text from somebody over there who said he never took his shirt off, so nobody could see, and he had his forearm all taped up. Where he allegedly got stabbed, where he said he didn't. He had pictures with the marks and everything like that. And the one match, I saw one of the matches of the two, the Thursday match, and he could move around and he was happy and it wasn't bad, but he also didn't do a whole lot either. So it was kind of like, and they talked about it in the commentary that he'd been stabbed. Which it's kind of amazing. You get stabbed on a Sunday, and you're flying to England and working on the next Thursday and Saturday. It's I don't know what to say.
And no phone.
And that was a weird one. Yeah, exactly. He said his phone was broken, but Page has a phone, so that made no sense to me at all. The idea that he didn't call anyone because, he lost his phone or the phone broke. It's like, his girlfriend's got a phone, and certainly someone's going to have a phone. He's in San Antonio where he lives, so at some point he could probably go home, and I'm guessing he's got a phone at home. That made no sense at all.
TNA also wrapped up their television tapings today. Hurricane Matthew postponed some of them, but now that they have got these tapings at least under them, are we any closer, Dave, to any kind of an announcement, or do you expect things to kind of cool down over the next few weeks because they don't necessarily have a gun to their head in order to secure any more financing immediately?
Right. I don't necessarily expect anything until the first of the year. I mean, maybe there'll be something, but yeah, it's like, Dixie now has time to try to save this. She doesn't want to sell. She's been doing this. Billy Corgan wants to buy, Aerolux wants to buy. It keeps going back and forth as to exactly what's happening there. The tape library stuff, I don't believe that they've sold the tape library to WWE. I know it's been reported that this week, but I absolutely do know that that's been, that's in play, or at least there's talks. So like when Dixie Carter, kind of denied that, it's like, yeah, at that moment she was probably telling the truth, but they're definitely in talks about selling that library, which would give them more cash, but that's a short-term thing, and but you're selling out your history. So, but they're filmed. They're filmed through, I guess, mid-December, and they'll probably do a couple of recap shows, and then the idea is to come back in January, is what we're hearing, and probably not in Orlando.
How did you feel about the Bobby Lashley losing the title?
I thought it was weird that you spend months building up the EC3 match. I was sure he was going to lose to EC3, and then he beats EC3 clean, and then he loses to Eddie Edwards, who hasn't been pushed in the slightest and lost on the pay-per-view. It was strange, Eddie Edwards is a good wrestler and everything. It just, it was definitely surprising.
Yeah, I thought so as well. Dave, we're going to wrap up, but what is coming up in the Observer this week?
Coverage of this show, what they do on TV the next 2 days, story on UFC finances, got probably whatever's going to happen as far as the next WWE pay-per-view. And
is that the women going to be main eventing that?
I haven't heard that. I mean, after tonight, I figure anything's possible. I mean, I have heard from people there who have speculated on it, but it could. It's like I almost think that they should, because it's like a hook.
Yep.
The first time ever. And it's Boston, and that's Sasha Banks' home.
Oh, so she's losing the title then?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Charlotte never loses on pay-per-view, exactly. Right. But so I think that it would probably be a pretty good idea, but I don't know it. No one said to me that. But I don't think that anyone knew what the main event or what was going to go on last today until this afternoon. So, that may not be decided until the afternoon of the show.
Do you think that they'll put the woman in the cell?
What?
Do you think that they'll put Sasha and Charlotte into the cell?
That was the plan.
Okay.
I know that they announced a card tonight, and they did not mention them in a cell, but they could always add that, on Raw tomorrow. But absolutely, before this title was to change hands, the idea was Sasha wins the title and defends in the cell in Boston. That was absolutely the plan. Now, these things change constantly.
Well, that's very much a main event then, and that's something that they have been pushing towards, I find. So we shall see and follow it along.